Good evening and welcome to the webinar tonight for Legally Wise Women. The webinar tonight is where I can let loose a bit. When your strategy doesn't go to plan, obviously means that you've probably had a fairly traditional strategy, and so we need to shake it right up, of course, and think about doing things differently. We know that when we face a legal problem, it causes stress, uncertainty, sleepless nights, all the emotions. And having a strategy that you finally feel comfortable with can just put you right back into turmoil again. So I'm suggesting that we look at an overall strategy of managing yourself and having an understanding of the system that you're in and understanding the limitations of that system and looking at other options or how to navigate within the system, again, understanding those limitations. So Legally Wise Women primarily exists because about 83% of women who face a legal problem, and this is over a 5-year period, so every 5 years, 83% of women face some form of legal problem and do not get professional advice. That's massive. That's a massive amount. In Australia alone, of course, with our 25 million people, that's 12 million roughly every 5 years with a problem who don't get advice. So we need to change that. We need to make sure women have much more legal literacy. And we need to make sure that they understand the system and the alternatives to the system. Again, the limitations of the system, the biases that you'll face as women if you go through the system, the strengths and weaknesses. Yes, there are some things that absolutely have to go down a traditional pathway, but the majority don't. However, at the moment, the majority of things is not being dealt with at all and just letting pass by. So why pay attention to me at all? So if you don't know me already, my name is Jackie Broman. I am a solicitor, so I'm talking from insider information. I've been a solicitor for nearly 20 years. I'm also an accredited specialist, so not just a general practitioner. I've done extra training and then a 12-month program with the Law Institute to get that special little accreditation logo. And also I've done further training as a mediator, which is almost completely contrary to how solicitors work, because as a mediator, you are just facilitating a conversation for people to keep control of their own lives and to work the issues out themselves, and you're just guiding the process. Whereas solicitors generally take responsibility for the matter and don't let you really explore any of the options. They usually narrow the options for you down themselves and eliminate things in their own minds and thinking they know what's best for you. So again, just having an understanding of that alone can really change your mind about how to approach a strategy that has gone wrong, and having if you are represented by a lawyer, having a much broader conversation around, well, what are my options? Don't eliminate any options. I want to consider them all with the pros and cons. So tonight, I get to really rattle away about some of the fundamentals of legal literacy and why women should approach legal disputes differently, and really the fundamental pillars of why Legally Wise Women exists. So we're really going to think about if a strategy's gone wrong, you need to go back to basics and really think about, well, what do you actually want out of this resolution? Not what you're being told you should want, not what you're being told is legally fair or right, but actually what is best for you. Now, if that aligns with what is legally best for you, fantastic. But sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes more or less could also, or sometimes it may not be a percentage or a dollar figure that is actually what you want. It may be a resolution of some other ancillary issue, which is underlying the whole issue in the first place. We're also going to talk about skills that need to be developed as part of legal literacy, having a bit of an understanding of negotiation, having an understanding of where to start, what the pathways may or may not be, so that you're not blind when you go into dealing with an issue. And then also then adding wisdom. So when I talk about wisdom, it brings the wise element from Legally Wise, which brings our intention. It brings how we are responding and how we are approaching the dispute ourselves, and hopefully not coming at it from a point of view of being vindictive or wanting to punish, because those won't serve you getting the outcome you want. So the first element is around knowing what you want. Now, there's a lot of things out there out about the moment about taking back your power. And I mean, it can be a bit of an off the cuff sort of statement, but what it truly means from a Legally Wise perspective is knowing what you want, owning your response and your reactions, and really not listening to the negativity around you, so that you are confident in the decision making and where you're coming from. So everyone has an opinion when you have a legal problem, and many people's opinions are not valid for you. They may have heard a story or had an experience, but it's not your experience. And I think we doubt ourselves way too much. Ultimately, we do know what is best for us. Yes, sometimes you need to go through a process to find the confidence in that, and working out how your decision-making process works. But once you do have an understanding of how your decision-making process works, you need to communicate that to whomever you're working with. So if you are working with a lawyer and you know that you can't make a decision on the spot, that you need to sleep on it, or you need to have a week or so, then communicate that, because then the lawyer will know, okay, I'll give them the options, whether it's in the appointment or whether a phone call or an email, and don't expect instructions there and then. It's then check in a day or two later and expect to get the instructions back. Or whether it's someone, whether your decision-making process involves talking out all the options and really having your solicitor as a soundboard, not having them weigh in and give their opinion, but more so them making sure that they've explained the pros and cons of each, and you talking that through. And as you talk, it becomes clearer to you what your decision is. So there's quite a few ways that people naturally come to decision making, and again, just having a bit of an understanding of how that is for you, and there are processes around finding that out, as is their processes about finding out what you actually want. But that then centers you into a place where you really need to come from. And yes, you may deviate from that because of the emotional ups and downs and roller coasters of a dispute. However, at the end of the day, if you know where you're coming back to, it just gives you so much more power, and potentially longevity, if you need longevity to see your way through a lengthy dispute. And hence we sort of come into a little bit of self-care. So we need to make sure that we've got sufficient support around us. Your solicitor is not a psychologist or counsellor. So yes, sometimes it can be helpful to vent. However, is it the most appropriate person to vent to? Is a Facebook forum the most appropriate place to vent to? Are your parents or siblings the best people to listen and give you advice when they actually have a vested interest in your outcome? So be very discerning around who you're really going to for your support. Pay for that support if you need to. Find a group of like-minded people who are going through something similar, or just a couple of close friends who are going to see you through the process, who understand that you just need to vent and you don't need them to solve your problems for you, because you've already made some fundamental decisions about what you actually want out of this and who you are showing up as. And you don't want anyone to come in and flare up that anger or element where you want to punish someone. You really want to, yes, find the right people around you. And that comes into also then finding the right lawyer, finding the right mediator, if that's necessary, and any other relevant pathways as well. So there are lots of legal coaches around these days as well, which sometimes are ex-lawyers, and they straddle that halfway point between a lawyer, because they're not going to give you legal advice, but they will help you go through pros and cons and look at various options, and a counsellor, because they're quite often not got counselling qualifications. Other, as I said, mediators, so having alternatives to go to as well. If you find the right lawyer, then often the right lawyer will have the right networks and be able to have an understanding of, well, this is your personality, so this mediator will suit you best, and be able to link you to the right people. However, if you haven't found the right lawyer in the first place, knowing how to do that is another skill in itself, but also how to find the right mediator, and knowing that they've got the experience and the particular qualifications that you need. So having a mediator who is legally trained may not sometimes be your best solution. It depends again on the situation. Having a mediator who has a counselling background might be a better situation if the dispute is less legal and more personal, family sort of situation. It could, and is a male or a female better, depending on the dynamics of the relationship between the people that you're mediating with. So exploring these things intelligently instead of just finding the first person and feeling their sense of authority and a relief that you've got someone, when in fact it may not be the right person. So we're very willing these days to get second opinions about medical problems. Let's maybe start getting more discerning about who we use for other professional services as well. Then not going in blind. So we want to go in with some eyes open. We want to have a little bit of knowledge and understanding behind us. Google's not a great place to start, unfortunately. A lot of law firms put out a lot of blogs and a lot of information out there. So you're sifting through a lot of information which you don't know applies to you or not. And then a lot of that stuff is really written in a language that is written by lawyers for other lawyers rather than for you as a consumer. So where do you even know where to start? Well, that's why taking advantage of a couple of free appointments, if you can work really well for you, because you can be linked into the right sort of resources. A number of community legal centres put out really great publications, which can be a really good place to start as well. And then Facebook, just like Google, is not a great place to go either. So knowing who is reputable to get your knowledge from, yes, can be a little bit tricky, but again, using some discernment. And if your previous strategy hasn't worked, then this is your new strategy about being discerning, being really careful, understanding where you're coming from, what you believe and buy into. And again, you've got this little group of support, get them to help you as well to find where to start kits. There's a lot of podcasts out there now, particularly around divorce and separation. There's even a lot of podcasts out there about commercial matters for people in business. Lots of little places to get free information that is more intelligently put together than just a Google search. And then, of course, preparation. So even though we've done the preparation about knowing who we want to show up as, and we want to be able to have our integrity throughout the dispute, we have a really good understanding of what we want to come out of this with, whether it's a relationship that's semi-healed and able to continue to parent kids for the next 10 years, for example, or whether it is being able to have an understanding that you're going to be financially secure. Preparation before you make an offer, before you go into a mediation, before you present something as well, putting together your evidence in an affidavit, all these things need the time that they should get. Don't just show up. So some of that preparation might be, well, if what I want out of this is to be financially secure on the other side of this, what does that even look like? Do you know, have you been to a financial planner to have some forecasts run about what you actually need for the rest of your life till retirement or beyond? So don't just make assumptions. Also prepare in terms of what to expect. So have a bit of an understanding of, if you're going to a particular location, what the room's going to be like, what the entrance is like, so that you don't have that additional uncertainty, energy, and anxiety around you to begin with. Make sure that you've got, if you're going in for a full day mediation, for example, food and water, because part of the strategy sometimes in those full day mediations is to make people starve and have people start getting headachy from lack of water, because the pressure gets put on to resolve it. Also, again, back to self-care, having some little sensory things that will actually calm your brain down. So if you know that a little calming essential oil roller is something that you can rub onto your wrist and just give you a whiff of calming, break your brain out of stress mode, then that's a great thing. Having a little fidget thing, so again, something sensory, so touch, smell, color. Even if you're speaking with a counselor or a psychologist talking about some strategies that could break your brain out of stress, quite often it might be notice 3 red things in the room, touch 3 different surfaces. So just, again, ways to break your brain out. Prepare a few different little phrases if you need to, such as, You know, if you're being put on the spot, look, I just need a break. Can I have a toilet break? Because quite often if we're put on the spot, we don't feel comfortable, or we don't even know what to say, because our brains go into fight or flight mode. So preparing a couple of little pre-prepared statements as well. If you're being asked a question you don't like or can't answer, have a little phrase that you might be able to say in response to that. So lots of little things that you can sort of do to make your day go a little bit easier. If you're compiling evidence into an affidavit, getting as much source material as possible, because if it's your word against theirs, but the only difference is that you can back your word up with a couple of written emails and some bank statements with things highlighted in them, or a social media post that you'd screenshotted or something like that. It all supports the evidence that you're putting forward. So preparation, preparation, preparation. And then I spoke about this at the beginning a little bit around this wisdom piece. So I think it brings a bit of the magic, really. I've also spoken about having an intention about who you are and who you're showing up as, and understanding what your values are and staying in your integrity, because we, at the end of the day, want to be able to sleep at night. We want to know and that we acted in a way that we're comfortable with. We don't want to walk away from a situation feeling like I behaved so badly that I'm just going to be angry about this whole process because I'm ashamed of my own behavior, which I think happens a lot. A lot of people end up upset, but not really knowing the reason, the true reason why they're upset, which is often shame, unfortunately. So intention, though, can go a little bit further as well. So I've also been talking about when people come to a dispute with an intention to punish or to blame, or just to be vindictive and to hurt someone else, rather than coming with an intention to, even if it's just to do the best for yourself, not for everyone, the best for yourself. You don't want to harm anyone else, but you're coming in with an intention that is not to harm anyone, but to come out with the best for you. It just brings such a different level of clarity and energy to the whole dispute. It makes you more pleasant as well to deal with generally than someone who is bitter and angry. And when you're more pleasant to deal with, you're going to get better service, you're going to get better responses. So that's why there's this little bit of magic about it. And if you can somehow get to the point of wishing the best possible outcome for everyone, sometimes magic actually does happen. And then finally, having a bit of an understanding about whether there's a larger lesson to learn in the process you're going through. And sometimes there may not be, but there may even be a chance to say some things that have been left unsaid, or to even heal a relationship to a point. Not often when you go down a traditional pathway, because lawyers often just increase issues rather than decrease them. And then people just get angrier and angrier at each other. However, if you can have an early stage mediation, often a mediation can explore some of the emotions and things that have been left unsaid. You can sometimes say things that you needed to say. But the other thing is you can actually find a way of talking to each other again, potentially. And you can not, with a mediation, you don't have to do a single whole day mediation. You could do, say, 3 90-minute mediations over a period of 2 or 3 weeks, or a series of half-day mediations, which gives you space to breathe in between. It gives you space to reflect, to make decisions. If you're one of these people who needs at least a night to sleep on something to make a decision. And by coming together quite a few times, sometimes a lot of the emotion does come out of the situation, particularly if you get to say a whole lot of things at the beginning. And you may actually learn how to resolve conflicts between yourselves. So if it is a situation where you have to have an ongoing relationship, like work colleagues or some kind of business arrangement, or parents or siblings after someone's passed away, it is important to somehow heal that relationship and not have it completely broken down. So surprisingly, changing your strategy and not using a traditional path can potentially help heal as well as resolve a problem. So conflict, if it doesn't escalate and become a war, can actually be quite healing if we allow it to be. And so there you go. I got to speak about all sorts of things that might be fairly controversial for a traditional lawyer to speak about. But we are in a system that is not working well for anyone. It doesn't resolve many problems at all. It, like I said earlier, increases problems quite often and costs a lot of time and money. So you can use what I've spoken about tonight and learn from it and implement it yourself. You'll get a replay of this so you can watch it again, or you can do it supported as well. Legally Wise Women is a community. We've got some free elements, so you'll be able to get some of that support that I was talking about earlier in the night as well. Find people that are going through a similar thing as you. You've also got access to a lot of my other trainings and teachings if you're in our community. And the easiest way to do that is in a free Facebook group. So that can be a good place to start legal support for women if you're not in there already. But I also have a separate online community as well, with a premium aspect too, which actually has fortnightly group Q&A. So if you need additional support, that's also available too. So in the community, some of it, this is on Facebook, but otherwise it's in the community through the website. So as I said, fortnightly Q&As, other resources and access to me, hundreds of other videos, short 10-minute or so videos that I've recorded. Of course, access to me means access to my network. So people that I feel like could help you in that support that you need. How to find and hire the right lawyer, how to negotiate. So there's some skill building in there as well, and other bonuses, templates, more information if you are in business. So the best way to get into the community is from the website, but pop WISE at the front. So wise.legallywisewomen.com.au. If you go to just legallywisewomen.com.au, there are the links from there as well. There's also lots of videos on that site for free and blogs and things as well. But yes, if you want the community, that's the portal to start from. So I hope that that was helpful tonight. For those not live, and if you're watching a replay and you do want to ask me any questions, the Facebook group is the best place to start. So again, Legal Support for Women, jump in there. And then at least you can DM me from in there, and I can point you in the right direction. But otherwise, I'm now going to stop the recording so that anyone here live can ask me any questions that they want to. And I hope that was helpful, and I hope to see you around.